Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go over the ballpark method. This is probably the most beneficial skill that I've built up that has allowed me to eat kind of whatever I want, whenever I want, without having to think about like macros and calories down to the exact T to the point where it stresses me out and it actually takes away from me enjoying the food. So, this approach is a semi accurate way to estimate the calories within a meal without weighing stuff or knowing the exact nutritional facts. And so, you use this when you are at a restaurant during some sort of event, like a barbecue, sporting event, anything where you don't know the exact nutritional information. This is not for like going out to get fast food when they have the information online. Because if you have the information online, or if you find some way to get the nutritional facts, take that at face value, like use it, right? This is more of a method for on the fly, you're traveling, you're like on a date, I don't know, whatever it is where you don't know the calories and the macros. So the benefits of this method, it's really a better alternative to strict tracking, like extreme caloric hyperfixation and complete ignorance. So it's a great middle ground to keep you rational without being obsessive over food. Because again, there's no point in enjoying good food if you're constantly thinking about how it's going to work out logistically with your plan and whatever. Like you got to live life, bro. You have to be able to enjoy the company you're with, enjoy the food, and kind of forget about that stuff, after you use the ballpark method. So let's get into it. Who is this for? Somebody with some nutritional tracking experience, right? I would not recommend this to a beginner because you kind of have to know like roughly how many calories are in foods. And if you are completely new to any sort of nutritional tracking, it's going to be very tough and it kind of defeats the purpose. So if you're starting from zero, I would recommend tracking your calories. So you start to gain a sense of how many calories are in different foods, and then you can use this method effectively. So these steps, 5 main steps. First, you got to look at your plate and you just identify what are the main food groups on your plate. You got to identify this to the best of your ability. It's not going to be perfect, but when you look at the plate, you can usually count out on one hand how many different types of foods there are. So it's usually like a carb source, a protein source, and then maybe a vegetable, and then maybe a sauce or some sort of toppings. That's a very reasonable meal profile, right? Or if it's a sandwich, you'll have like the bread, the meat, and then the toppings and sauce. You kind of see where this is going, right? It's like 3 to 5 main food groups. So you determine the rough quantity or serving size of each individual food item. So you look at like the rice, you look at the chicken, you look at the vegetables, and you kind of gauge like, all right, what is this? A cup of cooked rice? Is this like 6 ounces of chicken? Like, is this one chicken thigh? Is this 1.5 chicken breasts? Is this 2 cups of vegetables? Like you gain a understanding of the quantity, the portion size based off of your previous tracking experience. Because if you do have some experience with tracking, you'll be able to kind of ballpark and eyeball like what 6 ounces of chicken is, or like what 200 grams of rice looks like. Again, that's if you have some sort of experience. So determine the rough quantity and serving size of each food item, then label each item with a relative caloric estimate to similar food groups that you have tracked before and know. So this kind of just ties into the last point, right? Like if you see this much chicken, you're like, all right, that's about like 6 ounces of chicken because I've tracked that before and I know, so I'm going to label that, right? And then finally, or no, not finally. You add the totals mentally. So, like I said before, this should not be more than 4 to 5 individual numbers. You have your calorie labels for your plate, and then you add them up. And the last step is you keep a mental note of the calories only, not the macros. You will not be able to guess the macros. You will be able to get within a range, but at that point, it becomes like too much. There's really no point in trying to dial in the macros with a 10-gram margin of error. Like no point in that. If you're eating out, just focus on the calories. So keep a mental note of the calories only. These are, I don't know why I said closing notes. These are just notes because this is the start of the document. But ballparking calories is an excellent way to stay conscious of what you're eating when nutritional information isn't available. So 90% of the time with this method, you're not going to accurately guess the exact calories within the meal. And that's why we call it ballparking. You're giving yourself a ballpark, a range of what the meal could be. So you're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to be within a range, ideally of like 100 to 200 calories. That should be your margin of error in either direction. And again, building this skill takes a lot of time and it can feel overwhelming at first, but the more you do it, the more natural it's going to become. It's going to become second nature and it's going to get easier over time. As long as you practice it, you take reps. Okay, real world examples. I have about 5 of these. Feels like I'm teaching a lecture, but this is like literally these are meals that I've eaten that I've used this method on. So, Hawaiian barbecue plate, as you can see, this is what it looks like. Banging, of course. I never get rice, bro, because I just think rice is so boring. So I always sub extra scoop of rice. I sub the scoop of rice for the mac salad. That's just how I order Hawaiian barbecue. So let's go through the steps, right? What food groups do we have on this plate? Obviously, chicken, likely thighs, with some sort of teriyaki sauce or glaze or barbecue sauce or glaze. So this portion of chicken looks like kind of like a moderate normal portion. So I would put it within the 6 to 8 ounce category, right? And how many calories is 6 to 8 ounces of chicken thigh? Around 4 to 500. If we include some sort of glaze or sauce, that might be like 100 to 150. So boom, we can slap the chicken with the 400 label, 500 label, somewhere in there. Let's move on. What's next? Mac salad, 2 small scoops. I know that mac salad is usually about 200 to 250 calories. Oops. Let me turn on do not disturb. Do not disturb. I know that mac salad is about 200 to 250. Okay. We got the mac salad, which is like 200 to 250 calories per scoop. What's the base of mac salad? It's like mayo. So it's going to be higher in calories, right? Estimated calories, 200 to 250 calories each per scoop. That's a very reasonable amount. It's like, I mean, if you have smaller hands, it's probably about a fistful. My hands are big. So, it's just like it's a scoop of mac, right? You can estimate that from 2 to 300 calories. And then boom, where are we at? 800 to 1,000 calories for this entire plate. Now, if you told me this was 1,000 calories, I would say possibly, but I think it's probably a little less than that. And if you told me it was 800 calories, I'd be like, possibly, but it could also be a little more than that. So where do we end up? 900 calories. If you told me this meal is 900 calories, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. And again, what if it is 1,000 calories? Not that big of a deal. What if it's 800 calories? Not that big of a deal. We decrease the margin of error. Let's go to the second example. All right, example 2, breakfast. So step 1, identify the foods on the plate. We clearly have we have 4 different foods on our plate. We have eggs, toast, avocado, and butter. So let's go through each one. Eggs. How many eggs does this look like scrambled? Usually, if you've ever ordered breakfast at restaurants, it's about 3 eggs. If you order something like this, it's usually about 3 eggs. 3 eggs. I wouldn't say it's 2. I wouldn't say it's 4, right? 3 eggs is a very reasonable middle ground for this. So, boom, 3 eggs. Simple. 70 calories per egg, 210 calories. That's 210-ish calories. And sure, they might use some cooking oils in there. So, if you want to bump it up to like 300, go ahead. 210 calories for the eggs. Sourdough bread. Usually, one piece of sourdough is about 100 to 120 calories. If I add up 2 of these halves, that's like a thin slice like this. So I would say it airs on the lower end, about 100 calories per slice. How many slices do we have? 2 total slices broken up into 4 halves. So 100 calories each, 200 calories for the bread. And again, if you want to add in a little bit more for oil, if you're being that conscious, be my guest. Next up, avocado, half an avocado. 1 avocado is 240 calories because I know that because I've tracked avocado before. So not that difficult to say that's half an avocado. Probably anywhere from 100 to 120 calories. And then next up, butter. This looks like about a little more than a serving. So I'm going to say 1.5 tablespoons of butter. If 1 tablespoon of butter is 100 calories, what is that? 150 calories. So this is our ballpark range, 600 to 700 calories. Middle ground, I put 750. That should be 650. But you see what I'm saying? Like this is the very realistic range for this plate. I don't think this plate would be more than 7 to even 800 calories. That'd be very surprising. And it's probably not less than 600 calories given we have 3 main sources of fat. So easy, anywhere from 6 to, I think this was supposed to be, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If it's 600 calories, 700 calories, 800 calories, what matters is that we are in the range and we're not thinking this is 300 calories. Next example, this might be max level difficulty, XL Kava slot bowl. How are we going to eyeball the amount of calories in this bowl? Well, we do the same thing we did beforehand. What do we start with in a kava bowl? the veggies, and the rice. So likely, and I'm not counting the base vegetables like 30 calories. So likely we can say there's probably a cup of rice, which is about 200 calories. You can't even see it, but a cup of rice, 200 calories. How much meat? I think I definitely got extra. And usually one restaurant serving at a like serving style place like this or Chipotle, one serving is about 4 ounces of chicken. Because when you go to the store and you buy chicken thighs, buy chicken breasts, the serving size, 4 ounces, it makes sense that they do that at restaurants. So I got extra meat, likely 2.5 times that amount. So I'm going to say 10 ounces of meat. Now, what types of meat did I get? I think I got lamb and I think I got steak. So the steak at Cabo is lean, but the lamb is not. So I can put this in somewhat of a middle ground. And with 10 ounces of meat, that comes out to about 600 to 700 calories. Again, I don't know what oils they're using. I don't know what specific like cuts of meat they're using. So this is a very safe estimate, but about 10 ounces of meat with different types should be between 600 and 700 calories. Now we go into the toppings, and you might look at this and be like, how am I going to estimate this when there's so many different toppings? It looks like vomit, bro. Like, how am I going to decide what's what? You don't have to go through each topping. You can just imagine them all together in like their own little bowl. And for me, I said 2 cups because I got a lot of toppings. Like this looks like about 2 cups of toppings between the tomatoes, the corn, the onion, the cheese, blah, blah, blah. And then because it's mostly vegetables with some fats in there, I think that 300 calories is very reasonable. 300 calories for all the toppings, not including the sauces. So we got the corn, whatever tomatoes and cucumber mix, and then the cheese. That's probably no more than 300 calories. Again, a very safe range. Now, these sauces, this is also something that's hard to estimate. I'm not going to say like tablespoons or grams or ounces because how am I going to know that? So, what am I going to say instead? Light, medium, heavy. If I got 2 sauces and I got extra sauce, that falls into the category of heavy sauce. And so, this is at least 300 calories. It honestly could probably be more with how fatty these sauces are. So 300 calories for the sauce, at least. Sauces, this can be tricky to estimate, but again, you can err on the more extreme end and you're going to be completely fine. So if I put this up to like 400 or 500 calories, 500 might be a lot for sauce, but it's still keeping me safe. And that is the point of this entire method. So now we have our ballpark range. This is a bigger range because again, it's more complex, but that's okay. 1,300 to 1,700 calories. If you told me this bowl was 1,700 calories, I might immediately be like, that's a little bit high. Like my intuition would be like, that's a little bit high, right? Now, if you told me it was 1,300 calories, I'd be like, maybe, but I think that's a little bit low given how much stuff this is. And this is a massive bowl. So what's the middle ground? 1,500 calories. You told me this meal is 1,500 calories. I'd be like, yeah, that probably checks out. And if we do end up on the higher end of the spectrum or the lower end of the spectrum, completely fine. We just have to be within that range. So boom. Final boss complete. I think we have a couple more examples. Why am I failed to? Okay. American plate. I don't know why I said that, but it's a burger and chicken tenders. This is fairly simple. What foods do we have here? Well, we have the burger. What does the burger consist of? Beef patties, 2 of them, a brioche bun, cheese, sauces, and then we also have the chicken tenders. So that's everything split up. You can see it's about 5 different food items. Now we go to the portion sizes. So likely 4-ounce patties, as mentioned before, 4 ounces is a very standard serving size for meat. So 8 ounces of meat, which is a fattier cut of meat because it's a burger spot. So I'm going to say like 200 calories per patty. 400 calories for the beef. Brioche bun is about 300 calories, anywhere from 300 to 350. And then you got the cheese. 1 slice of cheese is about 110 calories. So we got 2 slices, that's 220. Sauce, medium, because it's a burger. It's not like that Cava bowl. It's not drowning in sauce, but this sauce is likely fattier because it is a burger. So you see what I'm saying? Again, getting in that range. 200 calories for sauce. It's like the same as taking a Chick-fil-A thing and spreading it on the bun. And then the chicken tenders, likely 130 calories each because tenders are usually breasts. So it's leaner, but it's fried. So 130 calories to 150 calories per chicken tender. And we have 3 of those. So now we laid everything out and we mapped out the calories. We can add these up and this gives us a range. So what's our range for this? 1,400 to 1,600 calories. Now, if you told me it was 1,600 calories, I'd be like, you know what? Probably, yeah. Considering they like probably put butter on the bun and then put the sauce on, and then I got the ketchup, and then I got maybe a dipping sauce, whatever. Like, yeah, this could push 1,600 calories. But if you told me this 1,400 calories, I'd be like, okay, it's on the lower end, but that could also play. Where's our middle ground? 1,500 calories, a very reasonable estimate for a meal like this. You have a big cheeseburger and then some smaller chicken tenders on the side. Last example, we have a poke plate. And again, this is pretty simple. It's laid out for us. Got rice here. We got our tuna. I think I got both. I got tuna on both, but two different types. And then we got the vegetables. So let's begin. What do we got? Two medium scoops of rice, likely 250 calories each. If you think about how much rice you eat within a meal, it usually ranges between 200 and 400 calories. So this scoop looks like 3/4 of a cup. I just said two medium scoops at 250 calories each. So the rice, 500 calories. If it's 400, which could be realistic, sure. Now we go into the poke. We have one which is more of like a cleaner version. Then we have one with a mayo base with avocado. That's fattier. So we are going to have to separate the fish and the sauces. So how much fish is this? Well, I actually know because they said on the website like what size plate comes with how much fish. And guess what? It's 4 ounces. 4 ounces per scoop. I got 2 scoops, so that's 8 ounces of tuna. Tuna is very lean. So with that, we have 250 calories total for the 8 ounces of fish, about 120 to 130 calories within a 4-ounce serving of tuna. So that's just for the fish. But now for the sauce, this one was a lighter like glaze, and this was a heavier mayo avocado sauce. So I'm gonna say 250 calories just for the sauce. So this portion, this section of the plate is 500 calories. And I 100% believe that. It just makes sense, right? You got to realize, like, when you're eating this stuff, when you're eating this good food, if it tastes really good, it's likely higher in calories than you think. So this might not look like a lot of food, but because the sauce makes it taste good, it's going to be higher in calories. And then finally, we have this little corner of vegetables, just pickled veggies. I don't really know what goes into that, but it's definitely not more than 100 to 150 calories. And so, boom, we have our total range. 1,000 to 1,200 calories, completely reasonable. 1,100 calories is your middle ground. Poke plate sorted. Okay, so that is essentially the ballpark method simplified. I hope this was not too confusing. I know I went fast. It's very natural to me, but as you can see, we have different varieties of foods. It's all kind of like typical stuff that you eat. And once you're able to be like, all right, food groups, serving size, calories per group, total, ballpark range, estimated middle ground, you're golden. It becomes so natural. And so it will take some practice, and it might get annoying when you're like looking at your food. Like you might have to look something up, like how many calories are in XYZ. That's okay. It's all about building a skill that eventually will become second nature over time. I hope this video really helped out. If you are someone who's dieting or you just got out of a diet and you really struggle with adjusting back into kind of normal eating with your nutrition, and you do want that food flexibility while staying in good shape, hit me up about one-on-one coaching. This is one of the most valuable aspects within my program. I want to be able to get people to a place where they can enjoy both good food and a good physique, because they are not mutually exclusive. So if you're interested, reach out to me and let's get to work. Appreciate you watching, and I will catch you in the next one.